So earlier on, you guys heard me say that I would like to be up here forever, right? 30 days, whatever. Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think is more valuable to me? Being here and doing this, or the eventual result that will come, be it from the proceeds and money that comes from this, the DVD set that will inevitably come from it, that kind of thing. What do you guys think? What do you think is more enjoyable? This. Like, do I look like I'm having fun up here? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right? Is the kind of fun, like especially, like look at the fun that we were having earlier here, just today, all of us together. Is the kind of fun that we were having here, what's more fun, that or like getting a bigger number when you get the bank statement comes out of your bank machine? You know what I'm saying? Right? That's what real fun is. Isn't it interesting how society has got us so fucking scattered and so fucking stuck on the surface of things that we can no longer see the depth, and we're running around trying to find new stimulation after new stimulation, more, right? Because we don't see the depth in things. Most people don't even realize that confidence and feeling good about yourself is a default state. And this was the sort of shocking epiphany that I had, was realizing that feeling good about myself was a default state. Let me tell you why. Here's the difference between ego and self-esteem, okay? If you want to just sort of break it down really simply. Self-esteem, you're born with it, just like arms and legs. It's indescribable. You cannot explain it. You cannot logicize it. It's like the word mojo, like the word soul, all right? You have it as a child, and you're born with it, okay? It is self-sustaining. It's just a self-sustaining thing that you have. What about ego? What the ego is a rational construct that we come up with as a substitute for self-esteem when self-esteem becomes wounded at a young age. All right? So things like getting status, making money, pulling girls, these things allow us to logically see what we should have as confidence. Now here's where it gets interesting. Could we not make an argument that the ego is more real than self-esteem because the ego is based off something rational? Right? You could say, why should I feel confident? If I've got my business running well, and I'm doing really great with other women, and I've got this going well and this going well, then I should be confident. If I don't have anything going for me, why would I feel confident? That's fake. On the surface, doesn't that make sense?
It's rational.
Right? It's rational. On the surface, it makes sense. Okay? And a lot of people, when you talk about the difference between ego and self-esteem, that's the first thing they're going to say to you. You know? That's what it's going to be. Anyway, look, I was studying this stuff, and I remember I was doing a boot camp, and I was sort of reading him different notes that I had, and started going through the concept of ego, and I was explaining it back to him, and suddenly what happened was like in one moment, like a very Hollywood-style moment, I was reading it, and I realized, like I'm reading it and explaining how we logically try to come up with reasons for why we should feel confident when it's just a default state. And I was reading about that. Kieran's article is one of them. I've been reading, other sources too, and we were going through this, and suddenly it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks, like boom, all right? And I looked at it, and I was like, like I saw it. I saw the ego, okay? I just started laughing, and I started mumbling, and I said, I think that studying. I remember I was like, I think studying this is maybe better for me than you. I think I need to really think about this stuff, right? And I was mumbling. And it was weird because I felt like my body just started to feel really good. You remember how we felt earlier when we were jumping around? I started to feel like that, right? And I had never really felt like that before. And I just started to feel really good, right? And I could see the ego. I saw what I was doing. And like all these images were going through my mind, like all my life from a young age, scrambling, like a rat in a rat race, trying to find reasons to know who I am, right? And it all went through my head, and I was like, oh my God. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. 2 decades? I did that for 2 decades? Oh my God, it hit me, all right? And it was interesting how all the stress that I was experiencing leading up to that sort of pushed me over the cliff, all right, to just sort of realizing that. And after that, I went out and sought out books on the topic. I started looking for books. Suddenly I found books like the Eckhart Tolle book, different ones like that explain this stuff and that explain that other people had similar experiences to this. And let me tell you, I walked around that night at the nightclub, and I was the most in state I'd ever been. But what I really noticed more than anything was that it wasn't like the normal state that I felt was like taking 2 electrical thick plugs, putting my hands on both of them and being like zzz. But what I felt when I was there was like a very calm sort of state, right? Remember we talked about like the burning brush fire versus like the red hot coal? Well, this is more like the searing hot coal. It was like I just felt good. And you know how a lot of the time when you're in state you feel really good, and then maybe you see a certain approach that you don't think you should do because you might get a bad response and you'll fall out of state? You guys ever had that? Sure. You're like, huh, you're like, yeah, and then you see an approach that looks up, you're like, I'm not going to do that one, that might be tough. Yeah, right, and you go like that. Okay? I didn't feel like that. I was completely cool. I was completely unattached to the outcome. It was like I was just chill, right? All of that inner dialogue that was in my head just turned off. All right, it was gone, and I was just kind of like, and I'm like looking around. I'm like just looking around, and I could start to see the depth in things. Right, it wasn't always just that superficial level. So I walked around like that for about 4 days. Okay, and I laughed a lot. Right, I would just like everything I saw. I was like, oh, right. I was just laughing, and this wasn't something I kept it private because it seemed so strange to me. I didn't really want to talk about it. I just felt great for about 4 days. What happened after about 4 days was I felt like I had lost myself, right? I was like, why am I not thinking anymore? Right? Where did all my problems go? Why am I not thinking? And the ego kind of came in the back door. Do you want to know how the ego comes in the back door? It does this. You start to feel really great and you quote unquote find self-esteem, and then you go, look at all these other people that are so stuck in their egos. Man, these guys need to learn self-esteem like me. All right? That's how the ego creeps back in. It's the most common way that the ego will creep back in. You start going, oh, this guy's so trapped in ego. Oh my God. All right? And you can see a guy who probably had that kind of like real self-esteem epiphany at one point, and then the ego just found its way in. The ego went, what are you doing, right? Snuck in the back door. It's like, I'm back. And you don't know I'm back, right? But go ahead and keep telling people how great you are now that you found self-esteem, okay? That's what the ego likes to do. There's a certain epiphany that happens that happiness is your default state. And that's a very, very freaky epiphany. Because think of all the implications that that has. If happiness is your default state, what would be the purpose of all the things you've done in your life?
There is none. You can just be happy doing nothing. And that actually goes back to what you were saying. When you said you didn't see the value in like spiritual leaders that don't do anything except for just practice spirituality or whatever. That's why. They're just happy.
They're just happy, right? And so I started to panic because it's like, well, why am I doing this then? Why am I doing that if I could just feel good independently, right? And it's sort of a freaky kind of epiphany. But nonetheless, seeing how well I did with women that weekend, I knew that I had to find a way to stabilize this, can it, and teach it. All right? Because this was the shit, okay? Right? I was like, this is amazing. It was the first time that I'd ever had a girl say to me, take me home and fuck me. I had never had, in all my years in the game, I'd never had a girl say, take me home now and fuck me. And that happened that weekend. That was also the weekend, you remember the story I told about the girl that stormed over and shoved the other girl out of the way and tried to pull me out of the club? That also happened that weekend separately, okay? So I was getting these incredible responses, right? And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, right? And that was it. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is incredible, but what is this? What's going on here? And how do I articulate this to people? Anyway, look, from that point, I went through a lot of different ups and downs, okay? I really connected to my self-esteem for a while, then I really lost it, all right? Then I went back into my old habits, even like 10 times harder, and then sort of fluctuated in and out of them for another year, all right? Kind of back and forth, back and forth. Anyway, look, what is the process? What goes on here? Well, look, let's think ego. What is it? How does it form? Where does it come from? All right, so I'm sitting there with my girlfriend. We're in Sam Goodies. You guys know that store?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're sitting there listening to music. She's got the headphones on her ears, and she's listening to it. And this little black kid comes up, and he's like, boom, just kind of bopping his head, right? Walks up to her, taps her on the leg, pulls the cord, takes the headphones off of her ears, puts it on, and just starts jamming. He's like, yeah, like that. And me and my girlfriend looked at each other, and we're like, what is this, right? Like, are you kidding, right? And we look at the kid, we're like, what? And the kid's like that, right? And it's so cute, right? So adorable, it's so funny. And it really got me thinking that, as a kid, you had self-esteem, right? You didn't have this real concept of this grandiose image of yourself, or even as a grand victim, whatever it was. You just were aware of what was going on and you felt good. Right? Do you remember a time when you could approach people without any issue? Does everyone here have a time in their life like that? Say aye. Aye. All right? Everyone had that at one point, where it's like, hey, do you want to be my friend? And it was just assumed, right? That is at one point in your life, you had that. But at some point, we become wounded. And wounding can happen for many different reasons, can't it? It can happen when someone who you trusted just totally fucking screws you over. It can happen when your parents tell you don't talk to strangers, or children are to be seen, not to be heard. It's very 1800s, but derivatives of that. And it can especially happen from social conditioning, as you continually have all of your role models, all of the people who you look up to, are showing you how great they are. Right? Or maybe not all of them, but most of them. Most of your role models are showing you this is the lifestyle. This is the way to happiness. You see some guy who's got a certain brand of sunglasses, and he's like, right? He's got a certain drink, he's like, all right? And this advertisement, and as a kid, kids are sponges, right? Kids are innocent, they're sponges. So they're soaking this in, right? And that's going into their head that they have to become this big grandiose character. So you get wounded, right? Something happens, and it makes you feel bad. And what winds up happening is you don't feel that you can just be confident just for you anymore. You feel disconnected from the tribe, not a part of the tribe. So, of course, you feel disconnected. And what does your mind start to do? Your mind can't just let you sit there totally screwed up with no confidence at all, right? So your mind says, no, let's come up with logical reasons for why we can feel good. Okay? What are all the logical reasons that I can feel good about myself? And now, here comes the comparisons. Here comes the judgments. Here comes looking at yourself compared to your fellow man and finding the differences. Because self-esteem is based about common humanity, and ego is based about separateness and differentness. So you say, look, compared to Tommy, I have this and this and this. And compared to Joey, I'm, maybe not quite as good, and here's where I stand, and that kind of thing. And the ego starts to develop. And now you can say, oh, well, look, I can approach these people and talk to them. Why? I can draw confidence from that. Why? Simple, because of all these other things. So you remember that sort of, I was joking around the other day saying how a lot of guys would be like, me, I'm batting 100, man. Right? You remember Jenny from back in the day? She wanted me. I saw her. I wanted her. I got her. Right? And that's the ego there. It's like looking for logical reasons why we can feel confident. So why is the ego false? What is false by nature about the ego? Well, let me ask you this. When you speak with most people about their lives, how accurate are their memories?
Not very.
Do you have a perfectly recorded, accurate memory of your life?
No.
Do you not think that certain things that you remember about yourself, you might have twisted them in order to make it seem more positive in your favor? Or maybe you twisted them to seem like a bigger victim so you could create an identity out of that? Mm-hmm. Everybody does it. Your ego is by nature false. It is never as accurate as you think. It's just this little fake construct that you've made. And you want to know something? When you first face the ego for what it is, it seems huge, doesn't it? The idea of transcending the ego. But the ego is really nothing more than a little grain of sand. That's about how big it is. And you know what happens when you have a little grain of sand, but it's stuck right up on your eye? How big does it look?
Huge.
Looks huge, right? Remember we talked about dilating perception? Well, when you're thinking small and your perception is drawn in like that, and that's where the ego is, it's like having two big grains of sand on your eyes, and that's all you can see. And that is the filter through which you see the world. So what is the ego made out of? What is the structure of the ego? Here's a couple examples. Logical evidence. What is examples of logical evidence? I hooked up with this girl, I got this girl, I got this girl, I got this girl, okay? She took it on the face because she wants me so bad. This girl let me do this to her, right? All that kind of stuff, okay? How about people's opinions? Do you know, has everyone here at some point tried to find themselves in other people's opinions? Has everyone here done that at some point? Yes. Maybe. Rationalizations, like, you know, this person is such a dick, and the only reason that other people like that person is because they're stupid, or, you know, whatever it is, right? Everyone has a story connected to other stories, connected to other stories, in order to come up with their sense of self. And the last one that I think is really interesting is comparisons. Comparisons is a very interesting one, because essentially what the ego is look, when I ask what you are, do you know what you are?
Nope. No.
Like, okay, where are you right now?
Where?
Yeah, where are you?
Rufus.
Very simple, real simple. Where are you?
Here.
Spit it out. Just, okay, where are we?
Here.
Okay, where's here?
Hotel.
We're in a hotel. Where's the hotel?
LAX.
LAX. Where's LAX?
In LA.
Inglewood, Los Angeles.
Inglewood. All right. Where's okay? And where's that?
California.
Earth. Where's Earth?
Universe.
Where's the universe?
No idea. Nobody knows.
No one knows. Where do you go after you die?
No one knows.
No one knows. Are you even really alive right now?
We don't know.
Like compared to what we think life is? We don't know. Okay? Life is about the unknown. But what the ego does is it tries to shelter us from the unknown, doesn't it? It tries to say, look, I have all these labels for things, and I have all these judgments on things and comparisons from things. I know my environment. I know the truth about my environment. And so what that does is it shelters us from the real, what could be viewed as very frightening truth, that our lives, we are constantly in the unknown. Okay? Life is the unknown. In a lot of ways, human life is very absurd in the sense that we're born, you know, we strive, we do amazing things, we create relationships, we have an impact, all to do what? To die, right? Life will end. And we say, well, what's the point? And in a lot of ways, this is a point that Ernest Becker made, a guy named Ernest Becker made, and I think it's absolutely fascinating, which is that the fact that on some day that we're going to die leads to a denial of death where we can begin to view the world as an arena for heroism. Has anyone here ever read the Iliad of Homer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? You see how their view of reality is the world is an arena for heroism, so other people will speak of me after I'm dead and gone. I will be sung about after I'm dead and gone. I'll have fame on the lips of men. And so, essentially, what happens is we don't know who we are, right? We don't know who we are. We don't know what we are. We don't really know anything. So our mind says we have to make context. We have to find a context. Right? If you're in an elevator that's going up and down, and it's a glass elevator, and you can see where the floor is and you can see where the ceiling is, do you know how high you are? Yep. What if you're in an elevator where it's closed in and there's no buttons on the top? Then do you know how high you are? No. Well, that's what the ego is trying to do. It's looking for people to compare yourself to. So the ego always wants to kick the next man down. Why? Because when you kick the next man down, you can show why you're better. That's why people will say things like, I'm the best. Have you ever found yourself saying, I want to be the best? Rather than saying, I want to meet my potential, you say, I want to be the best. What does the best imply?
Better than others.
Better than others, right? Does it imply togetherness or separation?
Separation.
Okay. So this is what the ego does. It's always looking for separation to show why you're more real, you're more tangible. Okay? That's really what's going on there. So eventually we get what's called wounded. Okay? And what does it mean, you know, to be wounded? Well, look, on some level, you know, you have that experience that makes you no longer feel connected to the group. You start this process of rationalizing, and this leads to a life of seeing the surface of things and basically just trying to run around, trying to figure out who you are, trying to heal that wound. But ultimately, here's what's interesting. What you later realize is this. It's kind of old self-development expression. The more personal the wound, the more universal the wound. Okay? So I'll say that again. The more personal the wound, the more universal the wound. So what that means is like this. Look, everybody here has these stories from our past that are really, really embarrassing, right? That are very, humiliating, victimizing, and that kind of thing. And we can create an identity out of it. Like, look, this happened to me. All right? This is what happened to me. This is my identity. But hey, even though this bad stuff happened to me, look at all this good stuff that I have. Like, as a pickup artist, for example, look at all these girls that like me. Look at all these girls I hooked up with. Look at all these great responses that I can generate. Right? And that's, again, that's the ego structure there that needs more and more and more. That's why the ego by nature is like a cancerous tumor that keeps growing and growing and growing. Right? Real self-esteem is sustainable. Why is the ego not sustainable?
Constantly have to have reference material to support it.
Yeah, speak that louder.
You constantly have to have reference material to validate your ego.
Yeah.
Like, whatever your concept is, it's always looking for feedback.
Yeah, it's a black hole. Right? It's sucking. It's saying, give me more evidence, give me more evidence, give me more evidence. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have different reference experiences, having amazing experiences. But the thing is, we're talking about how to be really, really good with chicks here. And part of being really, really, really good with chicks means you have to eliminate neediness. So what I'm trying to get through to you guys is how to completely eradicate neediness. Do you guys think that it would be very good for your skills with women if you could totally eliminate all neediness? Yeah. Okay, right? Well, that's really what we're talking about here. That's why we're looking at these kinds of esoteric concepts. All right, so look. The ego is needing evidence to show why those old wounds don't really matter and you have more. Okay? So for example, one guy that I got compared to I think was really funny, and it was a very good description. Have you guys ever seen Syndrome from The Incredibles? Have you guys ever seen that? Okay? All right. Okay. And when that came out, I thought that was so funny because there was a lot. Oh yeah, the late bloomer here. All right. Okay. And why I thought that was funny, because when you look at Syndrome from The Incredibles, look at his story, right? He wants to be a superhero. He wants to be in with the superhero clique, okay? And then what happens? They say, no, Syndrome, you can't come, right? You can't be in this, okay? So they kick him out, right? So the next 20 years, he sits there. He builds a massive island, rocket boots, superpowers, right? And then he comes back and he's like, look what I have now, bitches, all right? And that's really what the ego is trying to do, right? When you look at someone like, I mean, I don't know the man, but take Saddam Hussein, right? And he's like, isn't that the essence of a supervillain? What is the essence of the supervillain, right, in a cartoon? He's the guy that on some level feels cut off from the vine. He's been removed from that sense of togetherness. And what's happened is he's tried to come up with all these logical reasons, like, look at this super power base that I have. Look at this look at Saddam, right? He's got castles and control, and he controls an empire, right? He has full control over everything. He's going to die someday, right? Or no. I don't watch TV, all right? Okay, look. Yeah, all right? I was thinking as Saddam at the time, but anyway. Okay, so, look, someday, when Saddam was alive, he's going to die, right? But do you see how by having full control, right? Like, look, I control this empire. I control these people. I have power and influence. You can deny your own death. Because when you lose control, when you cannot control a situation and you feel a deep sense of anger and frustration, you want to know what that often is in disguise? What's happening is you realize, if I can't even control this shit, how am I not going to die? Right? How am I not going to keep myself... Look, if I can't control this nonsense, if I can't control this bag of chips right here that's making squeaking noises, thank you very much, okay? Then how am I going to, how am I going to control this other stuff? All right? So what winds up happening is you feel like a frustration. You want control. It's that desire to be able to control your environment. And look, some of human beings' ultimate greatness, a total glory, is being able to control your environment. It is our ability to shape the world in the way that we want it. But the question is, why are we shaping it? How are we shaping it? Are we doing it from this desperate feeling of lack? Or are we doing it for the sake of right action? Are we doing it to feel the flow of creativity? Or are we doing it to deny the unknown? All right? And that's really what we have to ask ourselves. Now, what's amazing when you realize that happiness is a default setting is that, you guys ever heard it said like the now is the only moment there ever is? Yep. Yeah. The now is it. And what that means is it's a reflection of the idea that do not seek happiness in the future. happiness is now, right? And you realize that, you know, the way that you feel now, this is it, right? And it's funny, like, just being up here for 4 days, you know, I get up here and it's like, this is it. This is the action, right? Like, you know, as kids, we're told, okay, first you're a kid, you go to preschool, then you go to grade school, you get good grades, then you get to high school, you pass that, then you go to college, you pass that, then you get a job, you work your way up in the organization, then you retire, and that's the glory, right? You get to retire, okay? You know what I'm saying? That's what Timothy Ferriss would call, that's the deferred life plan. I love that term, a deferred life plan, all right? And I mean, really what's happening is, like, we're always taught to measure ourselves, to grade ourselves, and to keep going to the next thing, right? To get to the future. Let's get to the future. Let's get to the future, okay? And when you realize, like, this is it, you know, like, there's a future, you know, and the future's coming. It's unknown, but it's probably coming. But this is it right here, then the concept of time becomes very much irrelevant. And that's when the flow starts to happen. Have any of you guys ever just been enjoying yourselves so much that time just flew by?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where you just feel so good that there is no more need for time. Time can be used for, like, a practical purpose to get, you know, in order to coordinate things, you know, personal responsibility and accountability. But, you know, when someone says the now is all there ever is, what that means is that they feel good as they are, okay? That means that they can just sit there, sit in the park, just sit there on a park bench and just feel good, all right? That's the idea of that. All right? And that's what really self-esteem is, isn't it? Is being able to feel good on your own, independently, to generate state from within. That's where that's going to be coming from. And isn't it amazing that when you enter that timeless zone, your creativity just shoots through the roof? Like, you know, when you're out at the nightclub and you're just being so funny because you're not reaching for that better outcome. You're not like, oh, I don't feel good and I need this girl to validate, but you just feel good right now and it just starts to flow out of you. And it's really just the most amazing thing. But like I said, look, like doing this program, the enjoyment of the offering of value could never be matched up by the result. So the next concept I want to introduce to you is this. It's called the result is anticlimactic. So repeat that after me, okay? The result is anticlimactic.
The result is anticlimactic.
Okay, I'm going to do it again. The result is anticlimactic.
The result is anticlimactic.
Good. It always is, okay? The result can never be as good as the doing, all right? The now, because it's all the same. When you realize that happiness is all there is, and it's a default state, it's all the same shit. You know what I'm saying? It's the same shit, man. Say that I'm sitting here now. Okay, look, say you're sitting here now, you're feeling good, right? Feeling good. And then you get the result of something. You know, you get the payoff. Okay, I feel good. It's the same thing.
Okay.
There's no difference, right?
Okay.
So then you say, well, why do we do anything? Well, look, offering value, that's like the most fucking glorious thing that you could ever do. You know? Like offering value to people. And to introduce that concept of offering value, here's what I would say to you, and this is where it comes in with social dynamics. Whenever you're interacting with somebody, this is my method, okay? You want to say what my method is, like what I think, like my pickup method is? Here's how I think of it. Whenever you're operating through the ego and you're trying to get someone to react to you, you're seeking a reaction to self-seek, that is taking value. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
How does it feel when someone is speaking with you and trying to self-seek by manipulating your reactions? Good or bad?
Bad.
Right? Would you say icky?
Icky.
Right? It's an icky feeling. Imagine being a chick. Man. Oh, man. You wonder why girls are so quick to walk off at the first sign of I don't like this? Yeah. All right? Because guys are always trying to take value. It's an instinct. When someone is communicating authentically, that's also why I said the idea of being a good person, having integrity. People can sense when you're trying to take value from them. And when you're just offering value, it's amazing how people will respond. You know a great exercise that we do on boot camp a lot? I'll say, look, I'm going to say a word and just go up to them and just start talking to them about your thoughts on it. And I'll be like the wall, okay? You go up and you just, and I'll say, look, no reaction. When you think about your criteria for success, like the criteria for whether or not it worked, don't make the criteria how they responded. Your only criteria was you put yourself out there and you're true to yourself. You just said what you thought in the moment, all right? So you go up, you say, oh, you know, there's the wall, it's gray, has some cool things on it. I like that. Walls are good, you know, they help us to break up different rooms to lower sound problems. Isn't it nice? Yeah. And it's amazing how, you know, when you do that, it opens, right? You guys ever heard you can open with anything? Yeah. You can open with anything. You can, hey, I need to pee so bad.
Me too.
Okay, all right, okay, cool. You know, so the thing is, okay, you could open with that.
Except for babies and knives.
What's that? Oh yeah, no, none of that, all right? No psychoness, even if you're really psycho. All right. Essentially, when you're just offering value, that's an attractant. And when you're trying to take value, that's a repellent. All right? Now, here's the formula. Here's how I see it. How many yous are there? How many?
One.
One, right? How many people have your exact life experience and your exact perspective? Just one, right? Now, we've talked about how human beings, we have a socially created reality. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
We're bringing some of that full circle. If we have a socially created reality, then we always enjoy interacting with people. But if you're interacting with someone and they're trying to self-seek by giving you knowledge to generate reactions, is that really giving you authentic information or perspectives or vibes or whatever?
No.
Right? So your mind goes, no. But when someone's just being authentic, there's so many levels. Like, look, even just talking about the wall, all right? There's little ways in the way that you speak, like just the, like maybe like the state that you're in, maybe little things about your perspective, maybe the way that you joke around, maybe the way you shake hands, maybe the way you make eye contact. And if it's authentic, people are learning things from it. All right? That's why when a guy goes out in the forest alone for too long, what happens? Crazy, right? Okay? So people need that. We need connection with people, right? And so that's why when you go up and you're just offering value, you're being you, you're not self-seeking, you're offering value. That's a beautiful thing. It's amazing. And so if I had to size up my method into one expression, I would say offering value. And if I want to get more specific, I would call this self-amusement. Okay? Self-amusement is like the whole style that I love. So what that means is this. Most guys are going up and here's what they're doing. They're like, okay, I'm going to talk about this topic that she'll probably like and this topic that women probably respond to. And then they go up, they're kind of out of state, they throw out their opener or whatever, and they're trying to get her to respond. What I do, and what I want you guys to do as an experiment, is I want you to try self-amusing. And this is an awesome shift in perspective, and the results that you'll get from this will rock your world. Essentially what you do is you walk up and you just try to self-amuse. You just walk up and say things that pump your own state. Say things that you find funny. Even if they're silly, even if they're ridiculous. You guys know Ozzy? Yeah. Okay? Ozzy's, like, when I first met Ozzy, this guy's getting amazing results. I didn't understand back then. He would open with silliness. Raw, like, he would walk up and he'd be like, and he's like, you like it? You like it? He's like, He's like, it's nice, huh? It's nice, right? And I was like, what are you doing, right? And he's like, go Tiger. Go Tiger, right? And then he's like, you want to touch? Yeah, He's like, oh, you? Huh? Oh, it's nice. It's nice, right? And I'm like, what is this? What is he doing? What is this guy doing? Right? What is going on here? And I didn't know, okay? I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm like, how could he get away with that? How? The reason why is because Ozzy's nuts, and that amuses him. Okay? He's fully amused by that. As long as what you're doing amuses you, remember what we said? It's not about what is necessarily interesting by the content to the other person. Like, say a girl's interested in fashion. You don't have to go up and talk about fashion. She's interested in knowing what you find interesting. She wants to know what is interesting to you. She wants to know what's funny to you. So when you walk up, and look, when you're with your friends, right, and you guys are joking around, and then you bring her into the party, that is offering so much value to her. It's so exciting, it's so interesting, and it's so much the opposite of every chode out there. So look, this is like a shift in thinking. Like, you're like, okay, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to try and get a reaction. No, you've got to get used to making jokes that you like. Get your own little expressions. Get your own little inside jokes. Number one distinction, I'd say, between getting attraction and not is this. When you're bringing the party, she's interested. When you're trying to wedge your way into her party, she's repelled. You guys ever experienced that? When you and your friends are having fun and someone's trying to get into the party? What feeling does that give you? What if they're having the most fun in the club and then they come over? Oh, hey. Yeah, right? Your personality is going to be completely different. So this is why being authentic is so much better than just trying to think and be a social chameleon, all right? The integrity and the centeredness is always going to be stronger than the social chameleon. Being a social chameleon can come in handy, you know, but for the most part, when it comes to attracting women, that raw integrity is going to have such a stronger pull of attraction than being the chameleon. All right, now look. Remember we talked about approaching with a full cup versus an empty one? Well, that's the thing. Think of state, emotional state, as being that full cup. We talked about presence being contagious. So it's like, if this is you, and that's presence, and the girl's mind is chaotic, like that, what you're doing is you're providing, you know, that centeredness that keeps her, you know, feeling good herself. All right? That's the value that you offer as a man. That's why we describe it like, you know, you're the oak tree, she's a squirrel running around. Your value as a man is, in many ways, very much tied into you being connected to your power as a man. You being present. You know? You knowing who you are and not self-seeking in other people's responses to you. All right, so look. Think about wounds, guys. Let's think about them. All right, I'll go first. When I was a kid, I was at camp, and I whizzed the bed. The camp counselors took the sleeping bag and hung it out on the clothesline rack, and then everyone said, "Hey, why's your sleeping bag up there?" And I said, I spilled a Coke on it." Okay? Who's going next? Okay, give me one. And you got to yell loud, by the way.
Yeah, I'm pretty loud, so you couldn't notice.
Shoot.
When I was in high school, I was a new kid, and everyone, well, not everyone, because the children didn't mess with me, but pretty much all the popular kids just used to fuck with me. I mean, I was on a football team, didn't matter, I'd be in practice, I'd be running, they'd be running the other way, like doing sprints, you know, and the dude would just fucking like truck me.
Yeah.
Beat my ass, it sucked.
Uh-huh. Who here's had stuff like that happen to them? Yeah? Okay. Go for it.
When I was like in elementary school, I think it was 5th grade, I used to like have temper tantrums and start crying a lot. And my teacher told me to go on the couch if I had to do that. And one day I went and did that, and she had the whole class stand up and applaud me.
Uh-huh.
Like, not to be singled out, but
Yeah.
good job, you're crying. What?
Uh-huh. Who here's ever been centered out for being a crybaby or something like that in class?
Yeah, that's totally it.
Good stuff. All right, who's got another one? Shoot. Speak up loud, by the way. Speak to the whole crowd, loud.
Once I got in trouble with the law and I got put away for about 3 days, and the girl that I was dating at the time ended up sleeping with 5 other dudes, and 3 of them were my friends.
Victory. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Who's ever had a girl cheat on them while they're away for whatever reason? Yeah. All right. Who's ever had a girl cheat on them for being in jail? All right. Who's got another one? Yep. Shoot.
I got the Just Friends speech from the first 17 girls I talked to.
Uh-huh. Just friends?
Yeah, you're a really nice guy. We should be friends.
Mm-hmm. Who here has ever had that? Yup. Who's got another one? Go for it. Loud.
I was a really fat, nerdy kid in high school. I thought that was so nerdy that the head, the president of the Asian Math Society, stole away my girlfriend. In fact, she wasn't even really my girlfriend. That's good. Alpha version.
Uh-huh. All right? Anyone here ever had their girlfriend stolen by a math president? No? Who here has ever had their girl go to an even nerdier guy than you, though? Yep. All right. Who's got another one? Shoot him, guys. Who's got one? Kieran.
Sure. When I was in primary school, I kind of had, I guess you call it ADD. We didn't diagnose it back then, but I was so disruptive that my teachers separated me out from the rest of the class and put me in a table in the corner of the room on my own, so I couldn't talk to any other children for 2 years.
Nice! Give him a hand for that one. 2 years of isolation. Nice!
Sorry?
Did they feed you at least?
No, I ate the rats.
You ate the rats.
Yeah.
Who here ever ate rats? Okay. All right. What's that?
I ate a gecko.
I ate a squirrel.
That's pretty good.
Awesome. All right. So look, I mean, what we're learning here is that the more personal the wound, the more universal it is. And what that means is that we all have some brutal failures, brutal humiliations, brutal wounding. Every single person has them, all right? And what happens when you don't realize that is you think that it's your identity. That's what makes you different from everybody else. So look at it this way. Do you make an identity about having a hand?
No.
Are you like, look at this hand? It's horrifying. It has 5 fingers. With a 6th finger, I could be like the guy from who played the 6-finger piano man in Gattaca. All right, do you think that?
No.
I was like, what the fuck was that come from? All right, editor. All right, look. Okay, so some hit, some miss. All right, so look, you can't make an identity out of that because everyone has it. You can't. You could try, but it won't work. So the same thing with wounds, right? We have these wounds that, you know, embarrassing, humiliating things. And on some unconscious level, on an ego-based level, the ego says, well, here's the wounds, and here's all the buffering around it. Okay? So look, here's this, like, personalized wound right here that you have. Okay? Maybe you ate rats for 2 years. Maybe you, did what, got beat up in school. All right? And so there's the wound. And the ego structure is like the scar. Do you guys see that?
Okay.
The ego is like the scar tissue, and it goes vroom, 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 more and more and more, right? It's like this girl I hooked up with, this thing, this money that I got, this other thing that I got, this other status thing that I got. It goes like that. So how do we get rid of the ego?
Kill the wound.
You know what you got to do? You have to accept both your good and your bad. You have to realize that the more personal it is, the more universal that it is, and you have to accept the wound. Because it's when you can finally, as you get older, reach a level where you accept yourself both for your positive sides and your flaws. When you stop just looking at the surface level of people and all the glitziness and the glamour, and you realize that we're all human beings, and we're all kind of made up in the same sort of way, when you can look past that and come to this kind of level, it's all good, right? There's a click that takes place, and you become what's called comfortable in your own skin. Everyone here heard that expression, comfortable in your own skin? Yeah. And to me, it's the guys that are really comfortable in their own skin. When you reach that level, that's when you can walk up to a girl real casual, say what's up, and you're so comfortable in your own skin, you don't qualify yourself, you don't react to her, none of that kind of nonsense. And that creates that nice, steady, silky, smooth state. We describe like an ego-based confidence. Like ego-based confidence is like this. Look, I opened this set. They responded well. I opened this girl. She responded well. And then your ego is going what's called a feeding frenzy. It's going, yum, yum, right? Rah, right? I approached this girl. She loved me. I approached this girl. She loved me. You're like, this is the shit. We're dominating. All right? And that's like the ego feeding frenzy. That's that high where you've got the 2 cables going zzz, like that. And hey, what's wrong with that? Is there anything that's necessarily wrong with that? No. I mean, having success is great. But yeah, it burns out. When you go home after that intense night where you're having the ego feeding frenzy, a lot of the time you feel tired.
Yeah.
Right? You feel like, I can't keep surging. And everyone ever had that? It's like a marathon. I can't keep doing this. It tires you out. Do you want to know why it tires you out? Because it is clasping. It's reaching. There's the subtle difference in state can be found between just feeling good versus like you're feeling good, but there's sort of this weird sort of shellac of neediness that's there. It's almost indetectable where you feel yourself reaching for the next reaction. You know? Like you feel good, but you've got that little bit of anxiousness in you, that little bit of adrenaline of whether or not you're going to get that next response that you're looking for. And it's not sustainable, all right? It's that old term, obtainable but not sustainable. So you see, you can get into state, and you can maintain it for a little while, but it's not permanent, is it? Sure. And is that not the holy grail, permanent state?
Right.
Yeah. That's every guy's holy grail, right? Like, when you have state in that nightclub, and you're like, this is awesome. I wish I was like this all the time. I want to be this guy. That's the guy that I want to be. Well, an ego-based confidence could never really fully achieve that. All right? And as you guys learn about the ego, I want you to keep your eyes out for celebrities who you see who have it all and go totally fucking bonkers. All right? Really. Watch it. And you know what? You can watch it, and it's a very interesting thing to see, but remember, we need to have more sympathy, if anything, because if you had that much attention thrown at you, your mind will do crazy, crazy, crazy things. All right? Your mind will play all sorts of insane games with you. As kids, you know, we come into this world feeling good, right? We come in social and able to speak with people and feeling good about ourselves for no reason at all. And we get older and we become more accomplished and we grow and we become better, but in many ways we don't even feel as good as we did when we were kids, right? We don't have that good feeling anymore. And as we grow up, you know, all the stimulation comes in, all the different things that are designed to sort of, you know, suck up our attention, make us chase, make us move us towards our deferred life plan. And we accept a lot of negativity within ourselves because we think the ends justifies the means. We accept a lot of victim thinking in ourselves because we think that that's going to motivate us towards, you know, bigger and better things, rather than just taking right action and creating just to create, creating just for the sake of it. And so this sort of brings me back to, like, when I first got into studying success with women. And I think the biggest thing I wanted to know was what went wrong with me. That was what I wanted to know. I wanted to know, how did this happen? What, you know, I'm sure that I was okay. I remember a time when I was okay. How did I get like this? How did it come to pass that I couldn't just approach girls confidently, or I couldn't, you know, get a girlfriend? Like, what had come to pass that caused this? And, you know, the journey of writing the blueprint for me has been about digging deep in, like going deep into myself, very deep into my mind, right? Spending long nights, like, really thinking and analyzing and you know, feeling what was going on up there and trying to think, what went wrong? And you know, by the time I was writing the blueprint, it was no longer what just went wrong with me, but it's what went wrong with everybody, practically. What went wrong here? What's going on, right? And I wanted to know. You know, it's like that journey, like, you know, going deep into the forest of your own mind and finding out, you know, who you really are and what you're all about. And that is why, for me, it was never about the outcome, but it was more about, you know, not about the, you know, the monetary outcome of writing a book or anything like that, but it was about finding out who I am, right? And the deeper that I went, the more that I discovered. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do, is go more and more deeply in, all right? Because look, all of you were born fine. Every single one of you were born happy. You were born fine. And something came along that might have moved you away from that. But you can refine that self-esteem, right? You can heal those wounds. You can remove all that excess structure around yourself. You can look into it. You can learn it. And you can find that self-esteem again, okay? And you can be happy. And in the process of doing it, we teach all this other great stuff, like learning abundance with women. Because in a lot of ways, not being successful with women is a huge dark cloud that can, you know, cloud over every other accomplishment. And so you learn that too. You learn about social interaction. You learn about people. Because I guess the way that I kind of view people nowadays is, rather than looking at every single person, like when I look in somebody's eyes, right? Rather than seeing them as the other, all right? And as we call that, the objectifying eye of the other. Rather than seeing the other, the way that I see it in my mind is a bit more like this. Right through here, this is like all the energy in the world almost. You can think of it like that. Like whatever it is that provides us with the energy to move around, to live, provides life, all that kind of stuff. That's how I sort of think about it. And what people are, to me, is almost like, think of it like a Bristol board, right? And on one side of the Bristol board, you have this big bright light, okay, this huge light. And in that Bristol board, there's little holes punched in, like just sort of punched in like that. Okay? And to me, that's what a human being is. That's what we all are. Like, you know, you see trees, you see all this energy, all this matter. And this is sort of like that universal intelligence that makes all of that, that creates all of that. And in the eyes, that's how I see it. Like right in the eyes, when, you know, when I look someone in the eyes and I'm speaking with them, what I don't see necessarily is somebody else, but what I see is a hole, right, from underneath. I see the light coming through. That's what I try to really see. And so, you know, when you're speaking with a woman, right, you don't necessarily have to look at her and judge her or assume that she's judging you, but rather you can just see that sort of self coming through. That is absolutely the core of this to me, is the whole self is coming through thing. You guys ever heard that expression, the self is coming through?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like the idea that, you know, if you found your self-esteem, you found your self-esteem. You could do a dorky, like, why do we get nervous, right? It's a performance anxiety. So I think I have to act like this, I have to act like that. But when you've reconnected with your self-esteem, you outframe all that. You can do this dorky thing, you can make yourself look stupid, and people are still like, oh, he's cool, because he has self-esteem. Anything that you think is bad about you, without self-esteem, is an embarrassment. But your flaws in the presence of self-esteem are quirks. They're endearing quirks. Think about that. The things about you that you might be embarrassed about are only bad if you're disconnected from your self-esteem. Think of people in your life who you've seen who, even though they have things that most people might consider to be embarrassing, it's just quirky. It just makes them cool. Like those dorky things about them makes them awesome, right? And so to me, that's what it really is. The self is always coming through. And so when you're looking at the girl, it's so natural to just be able to approach as a natural, and you can just look her in the eye, and rather than seeing the other, again, the objectifying other, you see yourself in all people. And what if they act bad? Well, you can say, okay, whatever, they're acting bad because they're caught up in the ego, right? They're being less conscious. But ultimately, you don't make an identity for them out of it. And you don't make an identity for yourself out of all of those external things. And this is what allows people to connect with each other. This is what allows people to stop trying to push each other down and things like that. And it's amazing because in studying this stuff, I met a huge range of people. I met some people who had an incredibly powerful ego-based confidence. And they could pull the girl as long as they're getting the reactions they want, but put them in a relationship and they'll keep losing the girl. Because when the circumstances don't line up the way they want, they lose their confidence and the girl leaves. And then I saw other guys who were very deeply connected to their self-esteem, who not only lived in phenomenal abundance with women, like insane, you know, rock star levels of abundance, but it was just so natural. They never had a problem maintaining a relationship. They had great relationships with everybody. And again, that comes from that self-esteem type thing, okay? Getting over comparing yourself to other people. Getting over finding your identity based on where you are on the totem pole. So I guess that's really what I want for all of you guys, all right? I want you guys to realize from the seminar that you can feel good. That you can feel good independently of other people's reactions. That you can generate your own state. That there's all of these things that people chase in order to get themselves to feel good. But ultimately, it's not what they really want. That's not what they're really chasing. They just think that that's what's going to do it because they're not seeing the depth. They're only looking at the surface. And, you know, for me, in writing this book, this was something that, you know, was a life goal of mine, right? To do the blueprint, to create this seminar, and to eventually record this seminar. This was like a major life goal of mine, okay? And it's something that I've worked on for years and years. And it's something that, you know, I put everything that I had into it because the joy of offering value, like every minute that I did it, I loved it. I didn't want to let go of it because I enjoyed it so much that, you know, I got so much enjoyment out of the offering of value that I didn't want to let go of it, you know? It was something that I wanted to just share with people, make a difference. I had this grand concept of how I was going to just change things and, you know, make a difference in people's lives and make something that we could like tap into people's motivation to become successful girls and to make them into better people, right? So I've been hanging on to this thing for such a long time, just working on it and just imagining for years and years now about what it would be like and what, you know, what this seminar would be like, how it would go down, how I would be, how people would, you know, get it, what they would get out of it and stuff like that. And yeah, you know, this is it, right? Like, I've been doing this for all these years just for this moment, you know? This is it. And nothing will compare to to the enjoyment that I got doing it. Nothing can compare to that, all right? Nothing. But I can put it out there for other people to get something out of it, and they can find what they need out of it, and they can take that lesson out of it. So, you know, without you guys here to enjoy this, I probably wouldn't have had the motivation, you know, and for people believing in me, and for people, you know, wanting to see what we're about. So that's really what I wanted for you guys. And, you know, we created this energy together, and now you guys are going to take it out with you. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming out and learning about the Blueprint. Thank you for making this possible, and thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for letting me offer this value because it means so much to me I can't even explain it. So thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys.